Okay, well, should be able to. How do I start the? Should be able to see what's going on. Any second. Okay, there we are, and we're live. And we're live. So this is just adjust the camera so you can see what's going on, folks. And the microphone's right in the way. There we go. Well, first of all, we're going to tune the guitar. This is close enough. Oh dear. So this has been on for what, 2? Okay, well, I'll call that tuned. Close enough for this lesson. Okay. Oh, hi, Whiskey. Do you want to jump in? Whiskey? Oh, I've just seen you. Oh, great. Hang on a minute. Invite. Copy there. And just a sec, Whiskey. Oh, great. So glad. So glad. Right, okay. Just a minute, Whiskey. I'll be on in a second. Just going to send you the link through our connection, private connection, and there it is. Paste and sent. So if you want to jump in, feel free, old fella. There we are. Oh, great. Right. Well, I've sent, like I said, I've sent you a thing. So while we're waiting for Whiskey, I'm just going to play a little bit of music. sent you the invitation, Whiskey. Now I've just destroyed Drag Racer. I was just going to do a short intro to the blues, because that's one of the things I keep meaning. So what I'm thinking, if I do it on a Sunday, we'll start the blues and make it dead easy. And of course, if you're involved, that's even better, because questions can be asked. So I can then take each of the live streams and chop them up like a lot of other people do. They do a live stream and then they chop that up as shorter videos into lessons. So we could just let it drift as we wish. And I'm dead excited. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. I can't tell you. I'm so glad. So glad. Okay, got it. All right, I'll get a coffee as well at some point. So the first job is to tune your guitar, but for this lesson, first lesson, it doesn't matter, because all I need you to do is put this hand on here, and you're going to get a pick and just count 4 with down strokes, and then 4 up strokes. Can't be that hard, can it? So we got 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's 4 bars. Now, then if we're getting fancy, once you've got the hang of that, that's your first lesson. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. So down, up, down, up. That's pretty slow, but it gets you in position. So the next thing would be down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and then up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Got it? Done. Easy. Now, it looks easy. That's a good week's worth of work. Okay, so that's the skill. Down, up, down, up. Have you got my message, Whiskey, by the way? Hey, Tommy. Just have a look at the blues. Just having a look at the blues. We're just hanging. Just hanging. So what I thought I would do, are you there, Whiskey? Have you got the link? Yeah, I've sent it to your Whiskey Tills and Tumbleweeds on Hangouts. You've definitely got it, it says here. I did, God, is it 50 minutes ago since I ran? Are you there? Are you in? Are you out? Are you? Oh, God, my neck, this shoulder. God. Fortunately, it's not made worse by the neck. It's all wrenched, apparently. So I'm on the edge of arthritis with it, apparently, going to the physio. Anyway. Just a sec. Right, so there's your first lesson. A string. That's the A string. Good place to start. It's the second one here. So we're going to go down, up. Once we've learned how to go down. Now, BB King used to use a lot of down strokes, and also a lot of up strokes, and a lot of down up strokes as well. It varies to your needs. So let's not get all bogged down. A lot of purists would say that, down up, it should be down up. And if it's on the offbeat, it should be the same. I don't care. Right, so according to Ivor Morantz, the best way to hold your pick is obviously with your fingers, and have it as if it's coming out of your first finger as a nail. Can you see that? The thickness affects the playing. The amount of plectrum you pick, or plectrum, same thing, amount of plectrum you show affects your control. The less you show, the more control you have. The more you show, the less damage you do to your string. So it's a balancing act. Now, some people do this, some people even do that. I started like that as a kid, and then I read an Ivor Morantz book, and he said, do this, which is what George Benson does. Now, as for your attack, some people attack at this angle, Some people attack at straight down angle. Some people attack at that angle. That's entirely down to you. There's umpteen videos. So basically all we're going to do is pluck this string. Get it to a sort of angle like that. You can do it quicker. If you get it straight up and down, it's difficult. And doing like that, I don't know how George Benson does it. But anyway, so there you have it. That's your lesson. You're going to learn how to pick that note. Now, edge of arthritis. yeah. I got bad shoulder. Okay, so Tommy AP, so let's have a look at it in the chat. Yeah, just hanging on Friday. Oh, that's Sunday. What is it? Sunday? God, that was quick. T1000, Tommy Wizzle, good evening. AP 530, good evening. Whiskey, of course, your old mate. Good lad. I'm so glad people are watching. Right, so I've just been thinking, I've started so many series on the guitar. I'm got to be the worst YouTuber in the universe. So I thought what I would do is do it big chunks on a live stream and then slice it up into little lessons. So this is the A string. I'm starting there because loads of blues is in the key of A. It also gives us a chance to go to the D string. So that's your next lesson, playing the D string. Down, up, down, up, or down, 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 up, 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 down, 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 up, down, up, down, up, over, down, this one up, this one down, and so on. Slower the better, okay? So once you can do that one, and then move to this one, and go back, then you want to do the E string. Then we jump onto the D string. That's where it gets clever. So we've got the, hang on, chat. We've got the A string for 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we move on to the D string. Back to the A string. And we go to the E string. Whoops. So overall, that'd be. So looking at it from a blues perspective, if I take this. Oh, hellfire. So we got. I woke up this morning, feeling so sick, thought I was dead. Oh yes, I did. I felt sick in my stomach, and I felt sick in my head. So I rolled over onto my pillow, and I threw up all over the bed. Or something like that. So you got the 12 bar. Since my baby left me, found a new place to dwell. Oh, I don't know. No, it's not blues, is it? I'm rambling. Sorry. Whiskey, rescue me. Rescue me. I'll send you the link. So, the first lesson is to play A. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello, Whiskey. Just setting your mark up. 2, 2, 3, 4. 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4, then change. 1, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3, 4, 8, 2, 3, 4, 9, 2, 3, 4, 10, 2, 3, 4, 11, 2, 3, 4, 12, 2, 3, 4. So it's 4 bars of the A string, 2 bars of the D string, 2 bars of the A string, and then 1 bar of the E string, 1 bar of the D string, 1 bar of the A string, and finish on the 1 bar of the E string, and that's 12. So it's 4 A's, 2 D strings, 2 A strings, 1 E, 1 D, that's 10, and then 1 A, 1 E, 12. Done. That's 12 bar. So oh, Addy, sorry, I'm new. I'm just learning. I have whiskey, sorry about that. Sorry.
Hello, good morning, or good evening for you. How are you, pal?
God, right, God, you're loud. Sorry, just a minute. You're so loud. I've just turned you down and gone bling. Bling. Right, how you doing? I just thought I'd start a series, or sorry, that was dead loud, of how to do with the blues. So if you have any questions, I just thought I'd start really basically with the root note of the crikey, that's definitely of the blues. So you start with this, you know, which leads to and so on. So that's what I'm aiming to do in this video.
You know who's really good to listen to for that kind of stuff is Jimmy Reed.
Jimmy Reed, right?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah. I've got him on my phone.
Yeah, I really like his style of playing. Very easygoing, laid back, a little bit of a southern drawl, even though he did spend a lot of his time up in Chicago. He pretty much stayed a country guy and kind of had that more acoustic way of playing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, like I said, that's the... So the next tip I would give anybody to play would be to put your first finger behind the 2nd fret. Hang on a second, they've off the picture. On the D string, which is here. And then play the A string and the D string together. So you've got... I'll play it up here so you can see. You're playing it as one move. And the third, well, leave it as that for now. And move the first finger down one and the strings you're plucking down one. Now I'm taking this on off. I'll just finish this off, I won't be set. And then finally on the E, and finish on the E. So the chords would be an A chord, 4 of those, a D, 4 of those. Now I don't want to get into what those chords are because this is for absolute beginners. So for now, we'll just stick at the A and the D, the A string and the D string, and I'll keep it like that. So how are you? Let's talk some blues, old fella.
I've been listening. You know, not too bad at all. Just woke up about an hour ago, and
right, okay.
Yeah, so I kind of slept in today.
Good.
I woke up at about 11 in the morning, which is usually, that's pretty late for me. So must have been knackered or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I know I was. I didn't get up early. I'm very, very tired. This is bad again. It just, I'm going to actually stop mentioning it because I just think it makes it worse. Whoop, move the desk. And I got the bass player. He was round the other day for a jam.
Oh, cool.
And he's up for a live stream. Get in. So he only lives down there. So next weekend, I'm hoping I'll get him in front of the camera to either do a video or a live stream if I can. Here.
Cool. Yeah, very good.
So I'll have...
you know what I just noticed yesterday, too, was we've just passed 100 subscribers here at Heartbeat Guitar. Yeah.
Crying out loud. Give away. Oh, we have 101. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for all your support.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Not bad for a couple of guys that are just hacking around, having fun, just kind of casually kind of putting up content here on this channel.
Yeah,
not too bad at all. Pretty fun.
Well, you're the expert on it all. You post regularly every Friday, and I'm just such a dead loss. Anyway, I won't mind. I'll drop you in it. Let's do a channel, and I do zip. But I'm determined to do more live streams. This is going to be my New Year resolution. So it's got to go out every Sunday, hopefully, a short live stream. I think is you may or may not be working on a Sunday because I know your times move about, don't they? So.
Yeah, well, it depends, right? So if I'm around on a Sunday, I'll definitely hop in with you for sure.
Yeah, because what I want to do is get the feel behind it, and I'm sure you'll be able to. Well, if you listen to Jimmy Reed, like you've already said, or Junior Wells, I know one of the tips I got really early on was to listen to the harmonica player and the harp player and copy their wrist, because very often they'll hit the sweet spot and not put too many frills around it. And I was listening to Howlin' Wolf, and also it was the other one who had a really basic sound. Messing with a Kid, Junior Wells.
Oh, Junior Wells,
Buddy Guy. Yeah, and Buddy Guy. I've listened. It's worn out. It's no longer available on YouTube. I've worn it out. You know, the one that's got the really big
collar. Yeah.
And Buddy Guy looks about 30 in his suit. It looks terrible because he's trousered with a big semi-acoustic guitar. And to be honest, the sound's it's really raw because they've got this. Hey, what this? It's really stripped down. Yeah.
That's actually my favorite version. That's from the album Buddy Guy and Junior Wells Play the Blues, right? Where it's a black and white photo of them on the cover. Yeah.
That's it, isn't it?
Yeah, that's my favorite version of that song. Yeah, that's right. AP 530 saying Buddy Guy and Junior Wells Play the Blues. Yeah, great album.
That's it.
Oh, you have that on cassette, AP? Holy smokes.
I think it's like. Whoops. Crying out loud. What's this here? So, watch this space. We'll have Chris out. Bass player. He's not that keen on the blues. It's a shame. Because he says, well, I can't stand more than an hour and a half. I said, I can't stand more than an hour and a half. That's a total lie, because I put it on all day. But I took him to see a blues band called The Hamsters. I don't know if you've heard of them.
The Hamsters?
Yeah, they're
actually. Yeah.
a British 3-piece unit. They do a ZZ Top, their own stuff, and they do a Jimi Hendrix set, and they do there's 4 sets they do, and they play all night. So, to be honest, you end up in the bar because there's only so much blues you can take in. I mean, we lasted an hour and a half right at the front, obviously. And it just got wearing because, like anything else, you can overdose on it. I mean, it's okay if you've got a CD or something playing and you put it on loop, but this was very, very loud. They were very, very good, though. Very, very, very good. I mean, they're Jimi Hendrix stuff. Yeah, been carrying on working on the Travelling Up the Neck, by the way, with the I'm cut off the thing there. Yeah. So where would you want to go next if you were learning to play the blues?
Me?
Starting, what do you suggest? I mean, I'm thinking you said not Junior Wells, who did you say? Who did you say to listen to? Jimmy Reed.
Jimmy Reed, yeah.
So he said, listen to Jimmy Reed. Where would you go next? Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, BB King's way too far.
I think for blues, especially on acoustic guitar, and if you're playing solo, let's say just singing and playing the guitar solo, accompanying yourself, let's say, I think it's pretty important to learn that walking bass line that you sort of, it was sort of created or first captured on recordings by Tommy Johnson in the late 1920s, but it was really sort of popularized and brought into sort of the public consciousness from recordings by Robert Johnson, where he's playing his own walking bass line on the bass strings, but then playing, you know, his melodies and his bottleneck sort of flourishes with the other remaining, you know, 3 or 4 strings, right? And
right, that's quite an advanced. Quite a big ask, is that? I'm just thinking.
Well, I mean, just getting the hang of the actual walking bass line itself.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I see what you mean. So, are you talking? I don't know.
Like just stuff like like basically a lot of like the stuff that you were just playing, really, you know, just providing yourself with a good foundation to kind of work around and be able to come back to throughout a song.
Oh, so you're talking but much more simple, like well, actually,
yeah, that kind of thing.
That's why I start off with 1 string, because if you push warm in, if you start off with 1 string, you can build it up to 2. Once you've got 2 strings going on, you really begin to rock, because you can get the 5th chords in. And it's hard to see. I want to distill it right down to where I started. I know before I started playing the blues, I could play some basic chords, but I want to sort of sideline that just to really get into the blues, you know.
Yeah.
Hence the single string.
I just added a link in the chat for a Tommy Johnson song from 1928.
All right, let's have a look then. Hang on a minute. We'll just do it over here.
He's basically the guy who's credited with inventing that walking bass line.
Let's have a listen. Canned Heat blues. Okay.
Yeah, AP 530 is talking about John Lee Hooker's Boogie Chillin'. Yeah, that's a great song. That became an instant classic. Once John Lee recorded that.
Oh, I see. I get you. So you're talking, you know. So, are you talking? I think it was in E. He was playing something along that. Walking, that's the sort of walking blues, isn't it?
Sorry. I mean, it sounds really simple now, and it sounds really funny to say that before him, nobody ever really played like that, because it's you listen to it now, it sounds so basic, so primitive, but
Okay, I'll have a look at some flat picking walking blues. I know there's one of the ones I learned, certainly listened to a lot, was Talking Blackpool Blues by a fella called Mike Harding. You may not have heard of him.
no, I've never heard of that guy.
He's a very famous British comedian in the 70s.
It's funny, that you were talking about listening to Junior Wells and Howlin' Wolf and the way they play the harmonica. And you were saying like they don't necessarily always go crazy with their fills and their flourishes. And that's kind of the thing, with a lot of instruments, and especially with the blues, is kind of often less is more, we talk about how Buddy Guy or B.B. King would just hit one note and just put a nice bend on it, and that's it. And other guys would, in that 5-second break would run up and down the neck and do all kinds of crazy masturbatory type things, whereas they might just hit one note, give it a really cool bend, and that's it, right? And the same thing with a lot of harp players too. They didn't necessarily always have to go crazy. Lots of warbling and lots of crazy, like the rule of threes and the looping and all that. A lot of times they just use it to punctuate. Exactly.
I like it when I call them throw-ins, where you be playing and just chuck a broken chord in or a single note. So, for example, and a good exponent to that would be what's his name from Cavey Island? Dr. Feelgood, the guitarist out of Dr. Feelgood called.
I can't remember his name.
Wilco Johnson. So Wilco Johnson. So I'd be doing something along the lines. But he strummed and did very clever technique. So, but for if you're doing this, you're doing a so to develop through the song, you'd have a Do you know what I mean? So it always come back to that punctuating. That's quite an art to get down. Sorry.
It was really good at playing like that with those tasty little flourishes, like you were just doing that. Down, 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 down. Was Sister Rosetta Tharpe, who was actually a nun.
Aye. But
she's known as the grandmother of rock and roll. She played gospel, and then she would go back and forth gospel blues. She was religious. She was a nun. And she'd play gospel, but then she'd get kind of bored with it. So she'd start playing blues and be all sinful, and then she'd feel remorseful about it and go back to doing gospel. And she kind of went back and forth for probably like 40 years. And she recorded both of some amazing blues and some amazing gospel stuff. And I just put in the chat a link for a song that she did called "Didn't It Rain?" Or no, Up Above My Head. Sorry, Up Above My Head. Which is very gospel sounding, of course, being that she was a gospel singer. But you can hear those bluesy licks and those rock and roll licks.
I'll just put the Talking Blackpool Blues in the link. Well,
I see, yeah.
That's I think that's maybe for later as I develop the series, because you could do one every half, so every couple of bars. Where is it in there?
But I would definitely encourage everybody that if they want to know where rock and roll guitar comes from, listen to Sister Rosetta Tharpe.
Oh, heck, I'm lost.
AP's talking about Stevie Ray Vaughan. Yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan was one of the best. He's my second favorite after Buddy Guy.
Cracky, if I could play like him, my God.
You know, probably technically more proficient, better player than Buddy Guy, perhaps. Oh. But for me, Buddy Guy's my favorite. But Stevie Ray Vaughan definitely takes the number 2 slot. Very close second place.
Well, Stevie Ray Vaughan was just insanity level of skill. I just, oh gosh, where do you start?
I mean, it's hard to kind of put, first, second, third place for these guitar players because they were all just so good. Buddy Guy, B.B. King, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Jimi Hendrix, like those 4 guys. Unbelievable.
There's insane speed on the lowdown, but he used very thick strings. He tuned his guitar down.
Yeah. But, another guy that doesn't get enough credit is Johnny Winter. I mean, Johnny Winter didn't use any whammy bars, any pedals, any wah-wah pedals, no effects, no nothing. He would just plug into his amp and he would play finger pick style or flat pick style, and he also would use bottleneck slide or not. And that's all it was for him. There was no crazy effects, but man, Johnny Winter was 1 in a million also. Definitely in the top 5. Like I would say, it's Buddy Guy, Stevie Ray Vaughan, B.B. King, Jimi Hendrix, Johnny Winter kind of is how I would maybe rank them. Maybe Johnny Winter a little higher.
I saw a lesson the other day on Jimi Hendrix stuff. If you're in the blues scale, you get that, Jimi Hendrix feels quite easy. Well, to get it.
Well,
to master
get it, but to
play it, sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. AP says Buddy Guy was bad to the bone and had his own credible style. Yeah, Buddy wasn't from the Mississippi Delta. He was from Louisiana. So he had a little bit of that sort of Cajun Creole influence, that little bit of that sort of wild way of playing. And much like how Muddy Waters was the bridge between acoustic blues and electric Chicago blues, Buddy Guy's the bridge between Chicago blues and rock and roll. He was kind of the first blues rock guy. He could walk just as comfortably amongst blues players like Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters, which he did, but he could also be just as comfortable with guys like Jeff Beck and the Rolling Stones, and all of those guys, right?
They had Jeff Beck on his last album, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Was it Cognac?
He had Jeff Beck and Keith Richards on Cognac. He had Beck and Richards on Cognac. And he had Mick Jagger on You Did the Crime, You Do the Time. You Did the Crime, I Do the Time. Yeah.
Yeah, the big, for John Lee Hooker, you've got, play that a lot. For
boom, 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 boom.
Hang on.
Ho, 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 ho. I love the way you go. I likes the way you go.
I'll have to look at that and get that bang on. For
there was a couple of guys that were like that just had their own unique style that you couldn't really pigeonhole too easily. John Lee Hooker was one of them.
Buddy Guy, you can't put your name. All I can tell you with Buddy Guy is that I remember after years and years and years listening, I thought, is that I play similar to that, and it was Buddy Guy, of course, because I'd listened to the Garbage Man Blues till the crack fell off the record. And by the way, I said, like me doesn't necessarily mean down here with me. It means I've played the odd moment like that. I wouldn't for 1 second start to. He
definitely had his own distinct style. Yeah.
Very aggressive. I mean, you got
those Louisiana guys,
you know, this sort of can't do it on the strings too hard, that sort of thing. And then a real fast moment. Can't do it on here.
Yeah, once you really start getting into it, you start recognizing regional styles, right? Like Texas blues or Louisiana blues or Mississippi blues, blues. And those Louisiana guys, they were just crazy. I mean, their style of blues is very much good time party music type blues. And that's why Buddy Guy and Junior Wells were such a great match, because Junior Wells was from Louisiana too. They didn't know each other growing up in Louisiana, but they eventually met up in Chicago and formed a fast friendship because, you know, they're both from Louisiana, and they both had a very similar style, very aggressive, very good time kind of music, and always hitting on the one, like right up on the one all the time. You know, like 1, 2, 3, 4. But for them, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. They really hit that one. You know what I mean?
Or should I say 1, 2? You know what to do. Hey,
yeah. 1, 2,
you know what to do. On.
What the hell?
Call it what you want. I call it messing with the kid.
Everybody. Look at what you did. Just a great track. That's kind of a theme song.
Yeah, so after we've done the single string, I have to show people some chords. Then we need to get out of E. So the blues scale will be next. And I think I'll start with the easier box. Because I remember right at the start, I had this. For those out there with the Harvey Vinson blues book, this is the very first exercise in there. Once you've got the chords down. No, actually, it was this, wasn't it? I'm not doing the bars. And the very first blues riff was. I've lost count now. Or the way you were talking before. Took me years to get through this, lad. And then after that, it said something along the lines, experiment with it, you know. And you're not sure what that means because you've no videos to go off. You've just got, you know, you're listening. What do you mean? Mess it up? I'm messing it up anyway. So then my friend Gary said, well, I'll give you a backing. And we used to spend like 5 hours on the trot just riffing and playing. And I'd be doing. And he used to say, get off the beat, don't play, leave a space. What? so to get, no, it's got to swing, all right. And it's hard to get out of there. You've got to really break. It's so hard to chuck it all together to get that, or to get anywhere to make it sound like you're bluesing, you know. But
You know,
yeah,
it's really great to listen to in terms of those guys that really jump on the one or really hit that one are the jump blues guys from the 40s. The guys that sort of gave birth to what would become known as the rock and roll sound. Guys like Louis Jordan and his timpani fives or his timpani sevens. It was kind of a big band sound, but scaled down from, you know, like 10 or 12 guys down to 5 or 7 guys. And Louis Jordan was sort of again, that sort of happy, good time type of music, you know, let the good times roll and those kinds of songs.
Just having a look.
They had a lot of swing and, you know, because I think Louis Jordan was the band leader, but he was also the lead vocalist and he was the saxophone player. You know, sort of playing those 3 roles really gave that band a lot of swing and a lot of jump. Very danceable stuff. The AP in the chat saying that Stevie Ray Vaughan covered Buddy Guy's "Leave My Little Girl Alone." Yeah, so Buddy Guy and Stevie Ray Vaughan are actually very close, very dear friends, and they were touring together on that tour where Stevie Ray Vaughan died. They were on the same bill. And Stevie Ray was one of the headliners and Buddy was one of the opening acts. And when it came time to fly to the next gig, they were flying by helicopter because it was a fairly short distance.
Didn't you take Eric Clapton's helicopter?
I'm not sure whose chopper it was. I don't recall. But I know that Buddy was supposed to be on that chopper. Right. But he felt that it wasn't right that the headliners had to wait for the next chopper. So he basically said, no, you guys go ahead and I'll wait for the next one. You guys are the headliners. I'm just backing you guys up. I'm just the opening guy. And then, of course, that was the chopper that crashed and Stevie passed away. And Buddy felt terrible about it. He struggled with that for years because they were very dear friends and he kind of felt guilty about it, which, of course, he shouldn't. It was no fault of his, of course. But I think there was a tremendous void that was left in Buddy's life when Stevie died. And then a few years later, Junior Wells died. And, you know, so he lost another really close dear friend and didn't really play with another harp player that much after that.
Oh, there's Junior Wells died, you say?
Yeah, when Junior Wells died. I mean, by that point, Buddy Guy had been pretty huge and he wasn't really performing a lot with Junior Wells, but they remained friends. And every once in a while, they would be guests on each other's albums and so on. But Junior Wells, by this point, was touring a lot with Philip Guy, Buddy Guy's brother, who was
he was on that album I keep talking about.
Yeah, and Philip Guy's quite good too. Not as good as Buddy by any stretch, but very good, very capable. So they were a nice duo. But yeah, when Junior died, you know, that again hit Buddy really hard, you know.
Can imagine.
And Buddy's music changed after that. He hardly ever had a harp player in any of his songs anymore after that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, blues players people too. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and you know, that contributes to the music, though. You know, that sense of loss and that sort of, you know, those sort of feeling down. It contributes to the music. It gives them material to work with, and then once they figure out a song and pay, you know, a tribute to Stevie or Junior or whoever they're feeling bad about, it becomes uplifting. They kind of get it off their chest and it kind of lifts their soul a little bit, you know, which is what the blues is all about, is getting your feelings out there, you know.
Yeah, it's, well, hence the blues, feeling blue, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. That's where the name comes from.
You're right, AP, for 5:30, but he's still kicking it, though. Not kidding.
Still. He just released his newest album this year. Blues is Alive and Well. And he's got a tour supporting that. And he's 83 years old, man.
He's doing a tour where he's on stage with Kingfish, isn't he? Been on stage with Kingfish. And by the way, the other week I went to a guitar shop. I think I mentioned this before. And my mate goes, "Who's this fella here? With all the posters." I saw Kingston. Hang on a minute. That's his name. Ingram Kingfish. Kingston. Keystone Kingfishing. I had got the name right at the time. Kingstone Kingfish Ingram. He says, "How do you know that?" They said this kid in the shop. I said, "Hey, well, he's got Buddy Guy on his album," and he went, "Wow, how do you know this?" I said, "Because I'm old." Love it officially being old. Still the mind of a 7-year-old. Actually, funny, I was talking about being 7. I was listening to that B-side of Slade that got me into the blues, which was I got a heart and soul, got a mind of my own, got a mind it ain't weak, got a lazy streak. Lately I said I've been a winner, ladies who all cook my dinner, I'm set free. I said don't blame me, no don't blame me.
Oh, that's Slade's song, right? Is that Slade?
Slade, yeah. Tons of tremolo on the machine, on the treble on the tons of vibrato. Yeah, it's. I can hardly play on it. No excuses. But these strings really are quite seriously thick. So there you have it. So how have you played lately? Got to get you here. Got to need you to do some harping on.
Actually, no, I haven't actually really sat down for probably a couple of weeks and played.
Well, what I should do.
I haven't really had a chance to. I've just been busy doing other things, I guess. I mean, I always get back to it, and I start feeling it after it's been a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks. I start kind of getting withdrawals and jonesing a bit, so I pick up the harmonica or something, and maybe sit down, noodle around for an hour or so.
That's a great thing, noodling and fiddling about. It's never gets old.
No, and because the type of blues that I prefer and that I tend to listen to tends to be a lot of the older stuff, just as the sort of the Chicago blues scene was really starting to really pick up, but there was still that big Memphis blues thing too, right? So, I really like the guys like, Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters, like the legends, the guys from the 50s, 60s, and even getting into the early 70s, right? That's kind of my bag. I really like the Elmore James and the Sonny Boy Williamsons and Junior Wells, and even going back to guys like Big Bill Brunzi in the early 50s. Those are the guys that I really love. Lightning Hopkins, Johnny Hooker. I tend not to listen to a lot of the really modern stuff that comes out unless it's really, really top-notch stuff like Kingfish Ingram.
Great.
Or what's his name's new album that he just put out this year too. He's a British guy. John Mayall.
John Mayall?
Yeah.
He's still about?
Yeah, he just put out an album last year.
Wow.
It's quite good. And what's the other guy's name? Walter Trout. I like Walter Trout.
Yeah, you mentioned him before. The other fella, there's a fella over it. We have it on Radio 2, maybe still. The harmonica player out of Bamford Mann's band. He has a blues radio show.
Oh, okay, yeah. Manfred Mann's Earth Band, later just Manfred Mann, yeah.
Yeah, hang on a minute, Radio 2. Let me just find Radio 2.
AP's got a question for me in the chat here. He's saying WST harps come in different tunings or chromatic? Come both, diatonic and chromatic. So harps come pre-tuned, so they come in the key of A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. But then you get the chromatic harp that has the button on the side that allows you to change from one key to the other by pressing or holding in that button and then releasing it. It's kind of like a little spring-loaded button on the side of the harmonica.
Yeah, it says here, Keris Matthews presents it, and so does Paul Jones. You heard of Paul Jones?
Paul Jones.
Played the harp.
Pretty generic sounding name. I mean,
Paul Jones.
perhaps.
I'll just send you a picture of him. Paul Jones. Paul Jones is an English singer, actor, harmonica player, radio personality, and TV presenter. He presented the Blues Show on Radio 2 for 32 years. Oh, he's still alive. He's 77 now, born in 42. Played with Manfred Mann, played with the Blues Band, the Manfreds, Eric Clapton, the Powerhouse. He was played on Do Wah Diddy. Mighty
okay.
I know you'll know Do Wah Diddy.
Oh yeah, there she was, just walking down the street, singing Do Wah Diddy.
Yeah, that's him. So, and now it's Keris Matthews. I don't know if you've heard of her. She was with a band called Catatonia.
No, doesn't ring.
They were big in the 90s. So yeah, there you go. The Radio 2 Blues program goes out on the 6th of January on Radio 2 at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
Halsey, Chicago. They'll be looking. Hang on a minute. It says here. Gosh, he's at the wall, crying out loud. Anyway, it's on. When is it? Blues. Weekly dose of blues. Oh, I'm so glad she likes the blues. I might give her a copy. Hangouts. No. StreamYard. No. Just a second, gentlemen.
Oh yeah, AP. Yeah, Freddie King. Freddie King was great. Again, kind of more of a blues rock kind of a guy. He could run around and hang out with the rock and roll guys just as much as the blues guys. Freddie King was a Texas bluesman.
Albert King, Freddie King.
The three Kings, right? Albert King, BB King, Freddie King.
I mix them all up. Well, I don't mix BB King up, but Freddie and Albert King. Which one? And I said, which one's the fat guy? But that sort of doesn't narrow it down much, does it?
Yeah, they're all three of them are kind of fat.
Yeah. So who is it? Had his strap on his right shoulder? That's Freddie King, isn't it?
I think.
Yeah, Albert King had the flying V.
Yeah, Albert
King
played the flying V a lot, and
really fast.
Often when you see pictures of Albert King, he's wearing sunglasses or glasses, and sometimes smokes a pipe.
That's right.
Well, he was kind of more of that soulful blues. He did some recordings down in Muscle Shoals, and for what was that label? It's the same label that Otis Redding and all them were on. It's more of a soul label than a blues label.
Well,
it wasn't like Chess or VJ. It was Stax. He recorded for Stax.
Well, for what it's worth, I've played a Flying V, and they're just terrible. You can't sit down with them. Rubbish. I won't have one given. I mean, I know they look cool and everything, and they got a bit of a resurgence, didn't they? Those sorts of things with the Charvels, with the heavy metal groups in there.
Yeah, there was a couple of guys that played crazy guitars like that. Albert with his Flying V. Johnny Winter played one quite a bit too. But the guy with the craziest guitars was Bo Diddley.
Bo Diddley with his rectangular guitars. Yeah, he
had all those. That box guitar. He played a Flying V also. He played all kinds of goofy shaped guitars and stuff. The other thing that you can tell the difference just vocally between Albert King and Freddie King is Albert King had a little bit of the mush mouth or marble mouth when he spoke, and it kind of comes out a little bit in his singing. He's kind of got a little bit of a mush mouth, marble kind of a mouth. Well, right? He doesn't speak with perfect diction, and even when he sings, he doesn't enunciate and use proper diction. But a great singer, very soulful singer. Albert King.
Freddie King. Oh, by the way, I love that thing you put out on Friday with who's it? The second.
Sonny Boy number 2.
Sonny Boy number 2. The tremolo, the vibrato he got on his playing was stunning. I think I mentioned that on the chat. And
yeah, that's.
I've lost the bloody plectrum again. Where's that gone? Right there.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I talk about how much I love Howlin' Wolf's harp playing, and I love Junior Wells' harp playing, and those guys were obviously fantastic. James Cotton and all those guys, Little Walter. But for my favorite harp player is Sonny Boy Williamson, number 2. I mean, he could play acoustic, he could play, electric harp, right? He used a lot of wah-wah, he could use echo effects, reverb, he could do acoustic, and he accompanied himself. He always sang and played harp all the time, and he could transition between singing and harp playing really quickly without missing a beat. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly. I've seen it
He
done.
was really smooth
We've got
transitioning between back and forth.
If we've got a guy around here called Ben Ruth. He's insane. He's really got it down. Oh, I think I live streamed him quite a while since.
Yes. Yeah.
I went into the bar and you couldn't really hear it, but what a stunning musician. He just stunning. He's very well regarded around here. Very well known. He organises the music festival and everything. But he's a very he goes. His little thing is the Chicago Blues Explosion, and he does go to Chicago.
Yeah.
In fact, one of our old drummers, Phil, he joined his band, and they went over to Chicago, and they had to have an escort because obviously they were going right into the roots of these deep down clubs, so they stuck out a bit, if you know what I mean.
And especially, I mean, depending on when they were going, if they were going in the 70s or 80s to the south side Chicago's or the west side of Chicago, it could definitely be a little intimidating and rough.
Well, this was the 90s. No, hang on, this would be early 2000s, and it was still
really.
Oh yeah, still an issue. Yeah, a gun had to have a.
I guess depending on the size of the club they're playing and where the club was, right? Like if you go to, Checkerboard Lounge or Buddy Guy's Legends, you're fine because that's like a big place, fairly world famous, and they kind of rely on a lot of out-of-towners to come into. But if you're just going to some local bucket of blood juke joint around the corner off the beaten path, that's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah, it was these guys. So as soon as he started playing, he got, it's not a problem, but, which is understandable.
Yeah, that's not a lot of the juke joints that were off the beaten path could get pretty rough. And they were like that even when they were just rural juke joints in the 20s and 30s out in the middle of nowhere. They were always. So what happens when you get, 100, 200 people shoved into a confined space and drinking and having a good time and partying
and a couple of women.
Yeah, and then or one musician jealous of another musician, or a husband jealous of
a musician,
the attention that his wife or girlfriend's giving to a musician.
Yeah,
that's the story behind why Robert Johnson died, right? Was supposedly one of the stories was that he was poisoned by a jealous husband because the guy's wife was paying too much attention to Robert.
Wow.
I mean, we'll never know for sure because there's about 3 or 4 different versions of that story, but that's sort of one of the stories historically that goes around. Sonny Boy number 2 himself talks about that actually.
Wow. Well, it does happen.
But
it does happen. I know that one of our drummers was very, very good looking, and he's real charming, and he'd smile and wink and this that, the other. So there'd be girls up and down, women, and he'd be winking at them and waving and spinning the sticks and grab, all the tricks. And
sure,
all that.
Yeah.
And then you'd see him get yanked out. So I know that's a sort of low level. Come on, love, we're going. But yeah, it was on the cards.
Yeah, and then
it works both ways. I remember one night the bass player had a beer mat thrown at him. It had been torn in half with the girl's phone number and name on it.
Yeah, there you go.
And I texted her and said, we play it. I told her where we were playing the night after. I didn't get...
well, it's unfortunate that a lot of these
such a great drive home.
All these guys that eventually became known as blues legends, and some of them were pretty legendary even in their own time. They just died too young because of situations like that. Robert Johnson or even Sonny Boy number 1 right? John Lee Williamson, the original, the first Sonny Boy Williamson, who did a lot of his recordings with Big Bill Brunzi in the 30s and 40s. He was killed in a back alley behind a blues club right after his gig.
But it's
Just
nice.
went out the back door and was walking down the alleyway late at night and was jumped and was stabbed. And no one really knows who did it or why it was done. But chances are it was somebody that was jealous, or a jealous husband or boyfriend, or maybe a jealous musician that was jealous of his abilities and his fame too.
It happens. I remember a lad in another band. He was a drummer. He was also a really damn good bass player, and he came out and there was a screwdriver in the oil filter, so the van was knackered, so they couldn't get home. Well, they couldn't. They had to ring exactly. 3 bands on that night. Now it takes some doing under a van. You got to get under it and stab the filter. So it's all over the place. Filter's knackered, so where to get an oil filter at 2:00 in the morning?
Yeah, no kidding. You don't. No.
So they had the AA, which is you've got the AAA, I think, have you?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
We have the AA, the Automobile Association. So,
well, here it's the CAA, the Canadian Automobile Association, but same thing, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's bad. I mean, even some poxy little gigs you do, you think, oh, hang on a minute, where's my microphone? Where's my microphone? Nicked. You get, and bands just nick other bands' stuff. Unbelievable. You wouldn't believe it. Perfectly normal people become, I don't know what happens to them. They just, where's a guitar cable?
Yeah.
So we used to have we had a system of getting everything away. You need to have a squirrel playing a flying V. Yeah, you got to be up there playing squirrel.
Yeah, no, you don't want me playing guitar. Your ears will start to bleed.
That's bad enough for me.
I can play the drums not too bad, and I'm a pretty good harmonica player, but that's about the extent of it. I tried to teach myself to play bottleneck style slide guitar so that I could cheat and not have to form chords, but then I realized that you still have to play chords.
Yeah, it's actually harder. Well, you need gad-dad tuning, don't you?
You need which tuning?
You need dad gag. No, gag. What's it called? Gad. Dag. No, dad gad. You change the strings. Instead of E, A, D, G, B, E, you change this. This is what you have. You've got this becomes a D.
Mm-hmm.
And this stays in there, this stays in a D, so that's dad. So I'll just do it. Alright, and then you've got gad, G, A, and then this becomes that's a B. So you down tune that to an A.
Oh, I see. Yeah, my guitar,
this one becomes an E.
I sort of play in an indiscriminate key. It's sort of tuned to an open E tuning, which is sort of the standard tuning of acoustic blues back in the day in the 30s, 40s. A lot of guys like that open E tuning. The other problem I have is a lot of these guys that I like, guys like John Lee Hooker and Howlin' Wolf, they would get into this groove where they wouldn't change keys that often. They would just kind of get into this sort of a droning kind of a sound where they would just play the same 3 chords and just play it and play it and play it.
So you talk about a drone. I was listening. You talk about a drone. I'm just
like a sort of droning, repetitive. They kind of get into a groove and then they just stay in that pocket. Like John Lee Hooker does that all the time. And, you hear about other band members that are backing him up and they're waiting for him to change keys and he never does. Or then he will suddenly change keys when they're not expecting it.
Yeah, you got. I'm gonna keep tapping the thing. I've not much room here. I'm gonna have to rig this microphone above the head, something down. Can you still hear me? I don't know if that'll work. Can you hear me?
Yeah, can hear you
All
fine.
right. So you get the. I'll use this cup. So if you get the zones on the strings, you can. So you experiment, you get loads of old stuff. Because, of course, the chord structure's completely gone. So if you try, that's it. That's it. How's it go? I can't think. I'm trying to do the Stones. Nowhere close. I did used to know. Good grief. Yeah, but anyway, you go. Sorry, I'm got carried away there.
AP saying, is that decaf slide or mug slide guitar? That's a beautiful thing about bottleneck style. Is those? I mean, now generally speaking, they'll use a piece of pipe or an actual piece of a bottleneck from a whiskey bottle or something like that over their finger. But I mean, there's guys that play that bottleneck style, and they'll use anything as a slide. They'll use the back of the knife blade, a comb, like a hair comb. There's a guy named Hambone Willie Newborn, and he would actually put a ham bone, like that round hollow bone. He would put a ham bone over his finger and use that as a slide. Hence the name Hambone Willie Newborn. And depending on what you use as your slide depends on what sort of tone you get, right? Like your guitar could be tuned exactly the same, but if you use a glass slide and then a metal slide, it has a different sound to it.
Yeah, and it also has a different feel to it. You get a better grip with a glass. You get a grip with a silver thing. It's just impossible. A brass one, there's brass, there's glass, stainless steel, perspex, and what else is used? There are also those sort of comb, as you say, comb type things that they use on slide guitars.
On the lap
pedal
guitar.
steel. Using
pedal steel lap guitar.
Pedal steel, it's a real dark art, and I think I did have a look at Ry Cooder.
He's a great slide player.
So you're not kidding. But really,
Ry Cooder's one of the best at bottleneck style for sure. Yeah,
unbelievable. So that was something I didn't bother to do. But the one you could sort of see yourself doing would be George Thorogood. Back to the bone, you know.
Oh yeah, he's so good too. You know, George Thorogood's so good as well.
Yeah, he was in the what was the song? It was Back to the Bone. It was in Terminator 2, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, I never heard that riff before. Fantastic.
You know, he's actually quite a good slide guitar player. Was Howlin' Wolf. A lot of people only, you know, they think of his huge booming voice, his very unique sounding tone to his voice. You know, they may associate some of his harmonica playing, but not too many people realize that Howlin' Wolf was a great guitar player. He played acoustic, he played electric, he could finger pick, or he would play bottleneck style with a slide too. Howlin' Wolf that's why he's actually my favorite all-around bluesman. I mean, Buddy Guy's my favorite guitarist, but Howlin' Wolf is my favorite all-around bluesman. He could sing, he could play harmonica, he could play acoustic guitar, electric guitar, with a slide, without a slide. Just amazing. Plus, he was a great band leader too, you know, and a fantastic personality.
Who's it looks like
showmanship.
I think what's his name's going to develop that way because he's only 20. Kingfish. It just.
Oh yeah.
Hey, look, I saw a little thing in Norman's Rare Guitars, and he seemed like a right nice young lad, unspoiled, you know. So that's grand. Oh, by the way, that's a lovely. Is that a pre-CBS Stratocaster AP530? Looking at the headstock, or is it one of the more modern large headstock reissues? Maple net, Fender lace pickups by the look of it, and no bridge cover. Nice piece of guitar. Is that what it is? But yeah, you're right. Listening, I'll go back and listen to Junior Wells and Buddy Guy. Plus, I've been listening. What got me started on this was listening to Howlin' Wolf tonight. I was having a bath, and of course, I put the blues on. I just keep it on a loop. You know, all those CDs he sent me, I've got on my phone now. So, thank you. I must reciprocate. But you're just listening to it and you think, gosh, I could actually now visualize, because I've done so much practice over the last couple of years since I rediscovered the blues. Which is great because I know that one. In fact, so much so now I've become a bit of a nerd with it. I was listening to The Darkness as well. And it's such blues-based rock. If you listen to Love Is Only a Feeling, which is a total cliche tune, they got riffs in it like this, you know, the real classic. Oh, hang on a minute. Let's turn that off. How to close it off? Yeah, you got. Oh, Whiskey, you've gone. Have I turned you off? What? I've turned you off. I don't know what I did there.
No, I just muted myself for a second.
Oh, did you? Sorry. I was fighting. I thought, I don't know. Oh my God, it's all new and I'm scared. Yeah, they were doing this.
Just give me 1 sec. I'll be right back.
So there we are. So the first lesson so far is playing the A string. Down, screw it up. Lay down, screw it up. Lay down, screw it up. Lay down, screw it up. Squire. All right, okay. Because some of those, if it's a Squire with that headstock, it's a Fender. How old is it? If it's got DiMarzios on it, that'll be a proper Squire. How old is it? Because the early Squires, just another means, as I understand it, of getting out Strat, because that looks like a corker. And if it's got DiMarzio pickups, then you're kicking ass with those. went on it. Oops. Still can't play. Okay, moving on from. Are you there, Whiskey?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Sorry, I was just smoozing till you got back. Right. Are you all right for time, by the way?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, for a little while. I mean, I have
cool,
stuff that I'm going to do later on
Oh,
today.
me too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sort of in my Christmas Sunday, and I've got a Christmas holiday coming up. So, Classic Vibes is the highest line in Squire. They're great. Yeah, my friend has a Mexican Squire, and it's absolutely stunning. Apart from one grub screw, but I said to him, if we change that grub screw and file it down, we'll ruin the guitar. Something will go wrong. You leave it. If you find a guitar setup that you love, just leave it. Right, I'll be back in a sec. I'm just gonna get a cup of coffee. I shall return, gentlemen. All right, back in a minute. Wow,
so I think what I'll do is just take this opportunity real quick just to welcome everybody to Harp and Guitar, People in Music. And of course, to thank everybody for all your support of these last couple of years, as everybody's been so kind as to help us achieve 100 subscribers. So, that's terrific, actually. Very excited about that. Very happy, and much appreciate all that support once again, because, this was a nice, neat little project that Monk and I started a little while back, just, for fun and just to share our combined passion for the blues. So it's great to see all that support, and it's great to see us reaching that 100 subscriber milestone. So yeah, thanks to everybody out there for liking and subscribing and commenting. Love the comments, love all the feedback about, some of the old music that I upload, or when Monk's giving guitar lessons, or, that's the kind of stuff that keeps the channel going. And that's what keeps us engaged and constantly coming back to this channel and uploading new contents, because we just enjoy the interaction. And we love the fact that there's so many people out there that share that passion for the blues. So yeah, thanks again to everybody for that 100 subscriber benchmark. That's terrific.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I mean, we only just slug it together. We've not made any big fuss. We've no Facebook page, no Instagram.
Yeah, there's not really a lot of promotion going on.
No, none.
It's kind of grown naturally, just from us, once or twice a week uploading something and just kind of having a good time. It's kind of staying casual with it and having fun with it,
Yeah. It's just, I know it's my phrase, isn't it? It's just great. Every time. It's just exciting. I don't know why. Just you can pick it up, can't you? I mean, anybody who plays, and I know probably all of you do, and just whatever instrument, just play a chord or... I think it's the accessibility and the being able to join in.
Because once you learn how to play a basic 12-bar blues, you could get together with anybody and say, hey, let's play a blues, and everybody knows what you're talking about, and everybody can get into it. As long as they know what key you're in, then everybody can join in, no problem.
Precisely. That's one of the comments in that Harvey Vincent book. Some things are such life-changing things, are they? That book, I mean, God. Make sure you jam. You got to jam. You got to talk to the guitarists. The blues is the basis of everything in music. Blah 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 blah. And it had pictures. Some brilliant. I'm gonna have to reorder it, but I want the really original one, not the one with the funky 70s mustache and beard on it. I want the one that's got it had a. Oh, I can't think what it looked like on the front. It was just a guitar, I think. But anyway, it had the importance, and soon you'll be able to take a chorus. And I thought that was such old-fashioned language, even then.
Yeah.
You can take a chorus, and I thought, God, that'd be great. Just rock up, just pick the guitar and play. That's what I wanted to do, and I can now. Except everybody's gone.
Well, and it's that accessibility that makes it. I mean, that's an important part of it, because.
No, absolutely.
I mean, if you look at, let's say, for example, one of the mainstays of the blues, right? The guitar and harmonica players accompanying one another. I mean, that goes back to, the 20s and 30s. And the reason that became such a sort of a standard blues duo was, because prior to that, it was the guitar player with the piano player. That was the big blues duo. So you had guys like Scrapper Blackwell on guitar and Leroy Carr playing piano, and those were the guys that those guys were the first ones to record "How Long Has That Evening Train Been Gone? How long, baby, how long?" But of course, it's much easier to buy a harmonica and stick it in your pocket and take it around with you wherever you go than it would be a piano. So eventually, that guitar piano duo morphed into guitar harmonica duo, because it was much easier to hobo around or travel around from town to town or from city to city or juke joint to juke joint. I mean, if you're a piano player and you show up at a juke joint for a gig and there's no piano there, you're screwed.
Yep, you're absolutely screwed.
Unless you're somebody like Skip James who could play guitar and piano, just as accomplished with one instrument as the other, or Petey Wheatstraw who could play piano and guitar.
Because he knows some stuff.
Oh, Petey Wheatstraw, the devil's son-in-law, the High Sheriff of Hell was how he branded himself.
God, how do you know all this stuff? Why, you must study. I'd say again, I feel like such a complete fraud. You know all this stuff and think, well, it doesn't matter. It's been part of whatever.
Well, that's why you and I are a great blues duo, because you're the practical aspect of it and I'm the theoretical aspect of it. Well, yeah, I know all the stories and I can talk about guys like Petey Wheatstraw or Son House or Skip James or whatever, but I can't play any of their stuff, but you can. So that's why I think we make a great team, is because I can talk about it until I'm blue in the face, but until you maybe play it, it's hard for people to understand exactly what it is that we're referring to, right?
Well, what we'll have to do then, you have to, off air, if you so to speak, you'll have to tell me to get me backside into gear and I'll do some real old. I know you've been doing the series on A Bucket of Blood, Canned Heat, and so on and so on and so on.
Oh, the Whiskey's Blues Gumbo, where I
gumbo stuff.
Explain the words and stuff. Yeah.
Black Cat Bone, which is pretty awful, and a Mojo Bag, and all the rest of it, and this Field Hollers and all this stuff. I mean, I've learned tremendous amounts, but I'm thinking, well, how does that apply to the guitar or the harp for you? So it'd be nice for us to have a think about, why did it become 12 bars? I mean, there's a question. How did that happen? I know you've told.
Well, that's because blues was. I mean, when we look back on the sort of emerging blues, when it was sort of first really coming into popularity, we look back at it now and it sounds old-timey, old style, very primitive sounding, right? That stuff from the 30s, from the 20s, that acoustic stuff. It sounds very, very old-timey and very primitive. But back then, to the people that were hearing it for the first time, that was the most trendy, the most modern music of the time. And it was rising in popularity, not just in the South, but all over the U.S. I mean, cities in the North, African-American communities in New York, Chicago, St. Louis, Detroit, they were all getting into the blues because it was the new fashion. And
it as modern, do you? It be the punk of its day or the
exactly.
And the technology, because there'd be a new format. There'd be post the social. I know there's this like massive social dynamics, isn't there? With the advent, the end of there's abolition, the end of the war, and there's still the overhang of the.
Yeah, you had Jim Crow in the South until the 60s and all that.
Yeah. So there's all that. Then there's the advent of there's the demographic shift up to Chicago and the northeast of the US. All that and the technology, the electric pickup and the whole thing. So, yeah.
Well, because it became the new fashion, it became sort of the big fad, and everybody was kind of wanted to jump on the bandwagon of this new style of music, and it was gaining in popularity. So what they kind of basically had to do was to sort of help it fit a little bit more into pop culture and sort of keep that momentum going of this sort of new style of playing. They kind of had to reshape it slightly so that it fit into what was already a popular sort of European style of music, that 12 bar sort of structure. So by morphing the blues into that 12 bar format, it was more easy. It was a lot easier to sort of fit in what was already a popular style of music, torch songs and Tin Pan Alley songs and ballads and that sort of thing, right? Because you got to remember that the blues kind of came out of a mishmash of about 5 or 6 different styles of music over, a span of about 100 years before it became known as the blues as we know it today in the 20s and 30s, right? It's a combination of ring songs and field hollers and work songs, Irish and Scottish jigs thrown in there, mixed with African and Caribbean rhythms. So you kind of put that into a big pot and stir it around and let it bubble and stew for a couple of decades. And then you add a little bit of structure to it in that 12 bar format. And next thing you know, you've got this timeless style of music born out of the US that is just as popular today as it ever was in the teens or 20s, right?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, even now, some people say you can play, gives a tune, and I give them some 12 bar. They go, oh yeah, you can play all the rock stuff then. And I'm thinking, wow. I mean, even in the 70s, loads and loads of tunes in the charts were based on that turnaround. So just
well, and you know what? There's a
just going
you
to
could definitely
I'll be back in. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure, no, go ahead. But you could definitely trace the lineage of the blues and how it affected and reaffected and infected and then reinfected the American music, right? I mean, you had people bringing the blues and playing the blues, bringing it with them over to Europe from the US during the Second World War. So a lot of Europeans, especially the Brits and the French, a lot of the Allied soldiers were starting to get exposed to American blues in the 40s. And then after the war, there was a bunch of African-American blues players in the late 40s and early 50s that started going over to Europe and to England to tour. And one of the first was Big Bill Broonzy. And I mean, he was an acoustic blues guitar player, but he could also play electric, but he's kind of more known for acoustic. But he had a huge repertoire. He could play work songs and field holler type songs and more folky type stuff. But he could also play really modern rhythm and blues, Chicago sounding stuff from the 40s and early 50s. And he was a huge influence on what would eventually become known as the first wave of British invasion rockers that came to the States in the early 60s, right? Like bands like Cream with Clapton, obviously, and then Ginger Baker and all those guys, right? And bands like the Alexis Corner Band and John Mayall and even the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, like Paul McCartney and John Lennon talk about seeing guys like Big Bill Broonzy play. And guys like J.B. Lenoir going over to England and France and Germany during the 50s. And that sort of permeated especially the British music scene. And basically they incorporated that bluesy style into their early development of rock and roll as rock and roll was really developing in England. And they were getting away from songs like My Old Man's Dustman and, like Skiffle and all that stuff. And they were getting into stuff that was a little bit deeper, a little more soulful, and, maybe not quite pop tunes, stuff that maybe had a little bit more to say to it. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up bringing that back to the US through the 60s. So there's always been this very important dynamic between the blues players of the US and then the guys that sort of reintroduced that style of music from England back to the US. And, especially post-war, immediately after the war in, Lace Curtain Land, austere Britain, and Ireland. The Irish are kind of known as the blacks of the UK. They had it really hard in Ireland and still do. And it's no wonder that Irish jigs and that sort of forlorn, struggling type of feeling that the Irish went through blended so well with the blues. And it's no wonder that the post-war British music scene also blended so well with the blues, because here you have these white Europeans, these British folks, feeling a lot of the same feelings, feeling these downtrodden, struggling to survive feelings that the African Americans were feeling in the 20s and 30s during, the Great Depression and that sort of thing, and Jim Crow and all of that in the US.
I don't know what is Jim Crow. I hear a lot about it on the YouTube. What's Jim Crow?
Jim
Or
Crow
who Jim
was
Crow?
these laws that were written after the emancipation, where they could still have separate but equal. So in other words, the white only and colored only water fountains, bathrooms, buses. Jim Crow laws were like, blacks could only sit at the back of the bus, could only sit on certain rail cars or passenger cars and trains.
Oh,
There
right.
was white only water fountains, colored only water fountains.
Right. Oh, I see. Hence Rosa Parks and the sitting on the bus.
Yeah, and that sort
the
of thing.
Stands, right? Okay, and the busing.
Yeah, and the Alabama bus protests.
Right. Okay.
And the lunch counter protests in Alabama and in Tennessee and in Mississippi, and so I mean, there's always been a sort of a brotherhood between African American blacks from the South who went over to Europe to tour in the 50s, and then these British musicians who at the time were teenagers, right? Like a teenage John Mayall or a teenage Eric Clapton, seeing J.B. Lenoir play or seeing Big Bill Broonzy play at some dark, dank, smelly British club or tavern, in the North Country or in the Midlands or something like that, where maybe they had only ever heard one blues song on some record that was brought from the US by some soldier after the war or something like that. And it just caught on because the British population could identify with the subject matter and with the feeling, that sort of sad, forlorn sort of feeling, but also wanted that uplifting feeling at the end of the blues song that, that sun's going to shine in my back door someday, kind of looking ahead to brighter futures type of feeling that you can also get from the blues. And they could identify with that very well. So there's always been this great camaraderie or brotherhood between British blues musicians and the American blues musicians. I mean, they fit right in. I mean, guys like Mayall and Clapton and Van Morrison and Joe Cocker, the way he sang. I mean, you could tell he had that feeling. He had that blue feeling, Yeah,
it's amazing how even in the 70s, when the Clash went over to the US to tour, they had in with the rectangular guitar. I got his name now.
Oh, Bo Diddley.
Bo Diddley. They had Bo Diddley on tour with him, on with them, and when the crowd didn't give them such a great reception, and Joe Strummer from the Clash came, I said, "Well, look, this is your heritage. If this guy didn't exist, we wouldn't be here."
Yeah, that's right.
Slam the audience. You better listen to your history and your culture, or we won't play tonight, and you won't be getting your money back.
Well, some of the most important figures in rock and roll history aren't just guys like Jerry Lee Lewis and Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley and Bill Haley and and Carl Perkins. It was also guys like Fats Domino and Little Richard and the Ray Charles. These are also the guys that Louis Jordan. I mean, nobody talks about Louis Jordan as being one of the founding fathers of the rock and roll sound because he played jump blues in the 40s. But that's what gave birth to rock and roll.
Yeah,
you combine hillbilly music with the blues, a nice danceable, upbeat jump blues, you get rock and roll.
Well, this is what was going on in the background of that song that you played. I'm in the wrong key, buddy. And so on and so on. Bap, bap, bap. Because what they do over the top, for example, put a major chord through a stab, and that's what was taken out to get rock and roll. So instead of ba 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 da da da, because all that masks the chord. So you take out ba 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 and put it to one side. You end up with the dum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba, you know, this. I'm in wrong key there. And that's how they did it in the guitar. They take the stab out, so you can.
And again, a perfect example of that style of playing is Sister
Yeah.
Rosetta Tharpe. I mean, what you were just doing there is textbook Sister Rosetta.
Yeah, so what's going on if you take out because you've got a semi-techme and a trumpet and a clarinet and a what's in a 4-piece section? Trombone, trumpet, sax, and often a clarinet. You'd have a 4-note chord, and that's what the stabs will do. Dum 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 ba 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 ba. So instead of that, you just get it, easy, isn't it? Get a guitar, 6 strings, you're sorted. So you've got a boom, 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 that's going on at bass. And over the top of that, instead of that, you've got the stabs on the guitar. So that's clearly how it works. So once you transfer from the horns, the bands are much smaller. You can replace the whole horn section with a guitar player or a couple of guitar players. And then, wow, you're there. You're sorted.
Yeah.
And if you sing as a harp player,
that's where you get that nice, fat, well-rounded, rich sort of sound that developed and came out of the 50s with the Chicago blues, which actually came out of Memphis. Like bands like Howlin' Wolf's band. I mean, at one point he had 3 guitar players. Wolf would play guitar, and then he had Hubert Sumlin, who was his lead guitarist. But then he often had, Pat Hare as a second guitarist, or he would have about Jimmy Rogers, who would bounce back and forth between Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters band. So often Wolf's band had 3 guitar players, maybe not on every song, but a great example of that sound and how it came out of it is somebody who's known as the grandfather of rock and roll, Bill Haley. But before Bill Haley was playing rock and roll, he was playing what then was called Western swing, which eventually became known as country and western or country music. But Western swing always had a very jazzy sound to it. So even though these were hicks from the country, like redneck boy, good old boys from from out in the sticks somewhere, they were playing some really swinging music that was called Western swing. It was basically a jazzy white folk music with an up-tempo beat. They would have clarinet in it, just like, a Benny Goodman band would have. But then they would also have slap bass. They would have, lap steel guitar or acoustic guitar or both. And sometimes not just a clarinet, but a small horn section in country music, of all things, right?
So you'd have a really busy band from one side with their history, and then you'd have people who just had a field holler. So you'd end up shrinking this end and maximizing this end, wouldn't you? I mean, think of B.B. King with his wire and a rock and a slidey piece of wood.
Diddley bow. Yeah,
a diddley bow. That's the thing. And
a lot of guys started with a diddley bow.
Yeah, and then there's a Jew's harp. Is it a Jew's harp or Jaw's harp? I can never remember.
Jew's harp, yeah.
Jew's harp. I mean, so if you've got 3 guitarists, you generally have got one playing down here. Oh dear. That's close enough. So you've got one playing down here, one playing up here, and one playing in the middle somewhere. So you could have one going. On those frequencies, another going. And, or and over the top of that, you go, no. That's how they did it. So because of that, you'd lay the singing. And what they would do, as time went on, they realized that the frequencies of the singing note would be masked. If you're playing this note, and you're singing and you're playing that note and the same, they'll mask each other. So what you would do, you'd have somebody doing stabs high up out of the frequency range with that. As long as they match, you make a chord across the band and that fattens out your sound, which is exactly what we used to do. If Chris is down here in the boots and I'm singing, say, something like that, the guitar will be up here. So
that's what we did. Still end up getting sort of a 3-part harmony between
it brings that,
and the voice. Yeah,
that's right. So you're going as you look at it you're going along the. If these strings are the score, and each of the frets is a bar, the music's going, as you look at it, the music's going that way, isn't it? Right. Yeah. So you've got each of these strings could be a note from a different instrument. So you won't want them in the same frequency range. You want them in different frequency ranges so they match. So and because of that, they don't interfere. And so that draws out the sound of the band, which is incidentally exactly what Police used to do. And that's why they were so good, because you get most out of least.
That was one of those bands. It's a 3-piece. It sounds like a 5-piece band. Yeah.
That's right. So as arrangements have got better, and that awareness. So it's very rare with a good band live, you'll hear that the ride cymbal, they stay off the cymbals while the guitarist is playing, because doing the high notes. Because if you suddenly start hitting the right, and this is what used to drive me crackers at gigs, one of the drummers would always be hitting this bell, high frequency ride cymbal, and I'd be sailing up the neck, and I said, well, just knock it off, because this I know it's pathetic and small, but stuff like that can really cause a ton of friction after the gig.
Of course it does.
You'd say, well, look, we rehearsed, you don't do, it just felt right. No, it don't felt right, do it right, and that could be quite an annoying thing.
Yeah.
And he did it regularly, so he was told by the bass player. But I mean, and it works the same for me. If somebody's hitting a high note, you don't want to be hitting a high chord. You want to be down in your boots. Or even you'll often see bands, they'll stop playing a certain instrument. The singer will stop playing. So it dries out the sound just for that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's whether it was intentional or not. You get, I woke up one morning feeling so sick I thought I was dead.
Yeah, Lightning Hopkins does that a lot.
Just stop. Oh man, that was a bad example. But you know what I mean? Woman I love, she's so big, fat and soft. Woman I love, she's so big, fat and soft. Whatever it is. Got to leave a chalk mark to see where I just left off. And so on and so on and so on. So I'll get carried
away. Who did such an amazingly beautiful job of doing these flourishes and runs up and down the neck, but not necessarily speed-wise, but just beautifully played. And we're lucky that we have him on literally hundreds of recordings. He played with everybody from Charlie Christian to he played with Louis Armstrong and his Hot Fives and Hot Sevens. Was Lonnie Johnson. No relation to Robert Johnson or Tommy Johnson. In fact, he comes from a generation earlier. And he's a New Orleans blues player, but a lot of jazz flavor in his playing. And we're lucky enough to have not only recordings of Lonnie Johnson from the 20s through until the 60s when he passed away, but actually video footage of him playing in black and white and in color. Lonnie Johnson is a 70-year-old man playing as well as he did when he was in his 20s.
Looking him up.
And he's running, his runs up and down the neck are absolutely beautiful. Tonally beautiful, very technically proficient, but without showing off. A lot of beautiful bending and just beautiful playing. Lonnie Johnson was one of those guys that influenced everybody who plays guitar, even if you're not aware of it. If you play guitar, you've been influenced either directly or indirectly by Lonnie Johnson. Just absolutely.
Oh, I've seen this. Yes, of course.
He's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it was in, yeah, that's the one we watched together.
And the importance of the guitar in rock and roll definitely comes out of the importance of guitar in the blues. And that comes out of the call and response. The guitar and all the bending used in blues on the guitar is born out of trying to emulate the human voice and the call and response or call and answer. So the vocalist would sing, and then he would respond or answer to his own voice with his guitar and try to emulate the talking or the singing or the vocal inflections of his voice by bending and playing certain notes on the guitar. So and that's how the guitar became the most important instrument in rock and roll, was because of the blues. Or much more important than drums, piano, even bass. I mean, the guitar and voice is the foundation of blues, and therefore the foundation of rock and roll.
So I like the opening. Took myself to a mountain, or whatever the words are. Jimi Hendrix, he swingles over it, doesn't do. And so does what's his name as well, the Irish fella, Rory Gallagher. He used to do that.
Well, and a lot of times you'll actually hear guys. Let's say the line is, woke up this morning and all I had was gone, right? That's a pretty famous one that a lot of blues songs start off with, that sort of phrase or that type of idea, right? Mm-hmm. But, if somebody plays guitar and they're accompanying themselves, especially if they play bottleneck style, what they might do is they might use the instrument to finish the last 3 or 4 words in that phrase. So they, instead of singing woke up this morning and all I had was gone, it's woke up this morning and all I had, let's say, and then the was gone part they'll actually play on the guitar strings.
All right, so
and bend and try to play it that way. And there's a lot of guys that played in that style. Leighton Hopkins played like that quite often. Mississippi Fred McDowell plays like that, where they basically make their guitar talk and finish their sentences for them. And it's amazing how they're able to do that.
I know B.B. King
talks
about...
This 1, 5, and 7 is used in blues, but they use the minor and major threes.
Minor, major thirds.
Thirds, yeah.
They're just the chords. Well, 1, 5, are you talking about 1, 5, 7? 1, 5, and 7 is used in blues, yeah, but you use minor, but they use minor and major thirds. Well, 1, 4, 5 is the main chord sequence. These are fifth chords, 7th chords you're talking about, and minor and major thirds and all that's all about. Those are the triads, aren't they? The chords, I think. Don't know. Hide. I can never remember the theory. I'm supposed to know all this stuff. Man, I studied it. So we've got a 1 chord. 1 chord would be the key of E, for example. You'd have a 7th. On bar 4, change to A7. 2 bars of that, and then back to E7. 2 bars of that. And B7. 1 bar. A7 for 1 bar. And E7. Back to A7. Oh, hang on. E7. Up to B7 to finish. The turn around. So those 1, 4, 5. But if you're using 1, 5, 7. 5. I see.
Well, don't forget too, the other thing that helps the blues sort of stand alone is you've got to flatten the 3rd, 5th, and 7 on the major scale.
Like I would know what that meant. I'm supposed to know. So flatten the...
You got to flatten the 3rd, 5th, and 7th of the major scale. And again, that comes out of that African pentatonic music scale, which is slightly different than the European traditional music scale. And again, because the blues is based most heavily in an African form of music, again, emulating the human voice. So that's why they flatten those notes. Plus, it helps to fit in the overlaying polyrhythms too, right?
I think so. But we've got, if you do flatten the third, instead of this, you end up with this, which is flatten the third and the what? The fifth. So you've got,
yeah, flatten third, fifth, and seventh in the major scale.
That's the fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Flatten that. Flatten the third. 1, 2, 3. So you got 1. And the third, the fifth, and the what?
And the seventh.
Oh, I see. Instead of, so yeah, that's right. It's bob on, because you've, instead of this, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. God help us. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, flatten that. 4, 5, flatten that. I don't get it. Not quite sure what that's worth, because but I was told that you're playing on the pentatonic, and this one is the blues note. I'll have to look into it.
Well, yeah, because your last chord is the dominant turnaround.
Yeah, the seventh, the fifth chord, the chord 5.
The fifth. Yeah, the fifth.
Yeah, normally you've got. So
most of the time, you play those chords in like harmonic seventh.
No idea what you're talking. Well, I used to. I can't. I don't think I had grade 5 music, classic musical theory. Would you?
Like a 7/4 ratio. I mean, it's tough, right? Because you have the Western diatonic scale, but of course the blues is built on the pentatonic scale.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to sort of approximate it with a minor seventh or a dominant seventh.
No idea.
This is all music theory that I don't really truly understand or know how to play myself, but
well, all this stuff's all well and good, but in retrospect, but I think I always maintain you had to play it first. And I know B.B. King was very patient with that guy in that video, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That guy was going, you played a Z sharp on the 4th bar. I just wonder if... Did I? Oh, right, okay. And BB...
Whatever you say, buddy.
Sorry?
He's basically, BB was like, yeah, whatever you say, buddy. I don't know. I just play what I play, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just give me 1 sec. I'll be right back, Monk. 1 sec here, pal.
Okay, no problem. Hang on a minute. That camera's dropped up. I raised it. Yeah, it's been an interesting journey, this, with the blues. I was talking to Chris, our old bass player, and he says, not that keen on the blues. I said, I know, but you actually have a major grounding in it because he said, well, I only need 3 notes for the bass. I said, yeah, that gives you more time to chase the women about. So. Watched a fella the other day play the guitar with 1 string, and he really rocked it. It was Flies in the Corn. Great he was. I think 1 string, dizzy 1 string, choosy 1 string, boozy, cruisy 1 string.
All right, I'm back. Sorry about that.
Did you come across that fella? Dizzy.
What's that?
I was just saying to folks, dizzy 1 string, is it, or cruisy 1 string? Fella with a 1 string guitar.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that guy. That's well, there's a bunch of guys. There's a guy named One String Sam, and there's tons of guys that play basically a fancy version of a diddly bow.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is, isn't it? A fretted diddly bow. Never thought.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting watching because C6 Steve, which I'm not so keen on. I don't know why.
Me neither. You know what it is to me? I find that he's too much of a try hard. He's trying too hard to be authentic and real blues. You know what I mean?
It's been all around the world underneath, doing the proper, hanging underneath, what do you call the bit where you can't see him?
Riding the blinds.
Riding the blinds, yeah. Because you had that as one of your, was that one?
Yeah, that was one of the Whiskey Blues Gumbo. Yeah, Riding the Blinds.
Just 1 second, my phone alarm has gone off and it's annoying me in the background. I don't want to get irritated. I'll be back in a second. Yeah, apparently the
I mean, doing stuff like that doesn't necessarily make you a more authentic blues player just because you hop a train and hobo it from town to town. Hell, I've done that. I've done that before where I've hidden the long grass and by a sharp turn on the track where the train has to slow down to take that turn, and you run alongside it and hop on the train and jump off in the next town. And then a few hours later, you take the train back to whatever town you came from. I've done that before in my youth and in my 20s. That doesn't make you more authentic or make you a better blues player. I guess it could sort of perhaps give you some street cred amongst blues purists or something, maybe. I don't know. But to me, that doesn't make you a better blues player because you've hopped a few trains or you've camped out on the levee somewhere in the South, you know? That's the nice thing about the blues, and that's the nice thing about Monk doing this stream where it's just basically just where a starting point where to jump off from, right? Just starting from scratch, because you think about some of the most commercially successful bands that played the blues and recorded the blues in the 20s and 30s and really helped kick off his popularity. There were, groups like the Mississippi Sheiks, which were basically a string band, right? You had these jug bands like the Memphis Jug Band, and these guys literally blew into big glass jugs to make that sound. And they didn't have a drummer. They had like a washboard player, and he would provide the rhythm. So, I mean, you don't have to have the biggest and best and latest and greatest fanciest equipment, the greatest guitar, the greatest keyboards, the greatest drum kit, the most expensive harmonica to play the blues. I mean, these guys were, the Mississippi Sheiks made hundreds of recordings in the 20s and 30s, and they were just a string band. I mean, they were banging on pots and pans. Yeah, they played fiddles and violins and guitars too, but for every guy in the band who played a proper guitar, there was a guy blowing into a jug or playing a washboard. And these sold hundreds of thousands of records in the 20s and 30s. So yeah, to be able to just like what Monk is doing here today with just starting from scratch. You know, you don't, you know, the basics are always the perfect jumping off point. You don't have to get super fancy with it.
In fact, talking of which, that's something Chris reminded me that we used to live by with the band. It's simple things done really well, or simple things done well. That was sort of our buy. If you listen to any music, it'll make a rap bit and play a blues lead over it. Didn't work. Blues lead is so wrong. Yep, absolutely does. It's right. I mean, how many bands have you heard? They do it. They stop and they got a basic paddle going on, and then you get. Somebody's singing over the top of it. They stop the whole band, and if the band's any good, it can go on for a while. You know, then it. And that way it builds up. But it can be really, really basic. So if you're using pots and pans, like you say, and you've got some key riff, you can go on and on and on. And it's mesmerizing, especially live. Yeah. You know, you see a good band live. I mean, you watch these bands when they're really in the zone and they're playing, and the crowd's with them. Now, watching it as a video, it can think, oh, crying out loud, this really is a difficult thing to watch because there's nothing going on. But when you're there, it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? It's really, really quite, you know, it's of the moment and everybody's at one. I know that sounds a bit, well, it probably is a bit arty, but, you know, it's... so on and so on and so on and go on and on. Sorry, I was getting carried away. But
I want to raise AP raises a good point here, where he's talking about, like, if you listen to any of his music that he makes, he just takes a rap beat, plays some blues licks on guitar over it, and then it works, right? And you know, there's a couple of stories that I quickly want to share with you here. One of them was from an interview that I saw with Marshall Chess, who was Leonard Chess's son. Now, of course, Leonard and Philip Chess were the ones that started Chess Records, which we all know from recordings from everybody from Buddy Guy to Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Little Walter, Big Mama Thornton, you name it, Coco Taylor, all the greats recorded with Chess. Chess was probably the preeminent blues label. And there was an interview with Marshall Chess, who was Leonard's son, and he was talking about when he was getting some of the bandmates back together who had recorded with a Muddy Waters album called Electric Mud.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to get those guys together and hook them up with some hip hop guys, some rap guys. And this was in the 90s. And he managed to get a hold of Chuck D from Public Enemy. And Chuck D was really into it and wanted to, you know, for sure, you know, was into this project. So they show up at the studio and he was talking to Marshall about the fact that one of the first times that Chuck D and Public Enemy went into the studio to record one of their albums, the sound engineer, the guy who was working the mixing board and all that, their producer basically, had a copy on CD of Muddy Waters' album Electric Mud.
All right.
There in the sound booth, and the guys were like, "What's this Electric Mud?" And then he said, "Oh, well, you know, the Muddy Waters." And Chuck D was like, "Who the hell's Muddy Waters?" Right? So Chuck D listened to this album, which was basically a reworking of. They brought Muddy Waters back into the studio. Chess did, and had him re-record some of his classics, right, like Hoochie Coochie Man and so on. But the band that he brought to back up Muddy for that album was a sort of a psychedelic sort of a jazzy band because he wanted to appeal to the psychedelic kids of the 60s that were coming up, right? This was sort of the flower child sort of movement of the late 60s, early 70s. So they got band members like Pete Cozy, who had played with Earth, Wind, and Fire, and Miles Davis. And they got all these cool sort of guys that would play that bow chicka wow wow style of funky rhythm and blues type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys backed up Muddy on that Electric Mud album. And it wasn't very well received by blues critics because it did have this sort of psychedelic guitar sort of feel to it and a lot of reverb and echo on Muddy's voice. But a lot of the rap guys really liked it because they liked Muddy's voice, his style, his sort of macho, deep voice. So when Chuck D saw this album and said, "Who's this?" and the sound engineers said, "I'll give it a listen," and they popped it in. Chuck D was inspired by these sort of macho bravado style of Muddy Waters. And Chuck D himself said, "I purposely copied that style. I purposely copied Muddy Waters' vocal style when I started rapping, when we started recording our first few albums, because I like the sound of his voice. I like the timbre of his voice. And I like how it conjured up images of the strong, powerful, macho black man." So a lot of the hip hop guys really owe a debt to a lot of the blues guys that came before them. And you could trace a lineage from the blues right to hip hop anyways. I mean, blues begot soul, soul begot R&B, which begot funk, which begot disco, which begot dance music, which begot hip hop or rap, right? So, you can definitely see how the music evolved. And the whole time there's that little bit of that blues flavor that always stayed with all of those sort of new genres of music that came through the 60s, 70s, 80s. Hell, even guys like Moby were sampling blues music from the 40s, 50s, and 60s, whether it was just a little verbal aside here or a little guitar lick there, and they would rework it into this sort of modern dance music or house music, right? So it's incredible how, it can all be traced back to the blues. Hey, like Willie Dixon said, the blues is the roots, everything else is the fruits.
Well, if people are copying it, was his name Chuck D, Public Enemy? If people are copying it, then it's clearly it's pretty much the center of everything, isn't it?
Well, I mean, you look at somebody like Chuck D and Public Enemy, and I mean, that's one of the greatest rap groups, rap artists, rap ensembles of all time.
Yeah, and
Chuck D said, "I made a conscious effort to purposely copy Muddy's style."
I'll have to have a look at.
And prior to that, he hadn't really even heard of Muddy Waters. I mean, he had heard of blues and he knew what blues music was, but by then, Chuck D's generation was like, "I don't want to listen to that sad blues music. That's my dad or my granddad's music. I don't want to listen to that shit," right? But then when he was sort of presented with it in a whole new light by his sound engineer and went back and listened to it, he thought, "You know what? This is some pretty cool stuff, man. I can really get behind this thing."
Excuse me. Well, I've been on for about 2 hours and however long. I'm beginning to fade a little bit.
Yeah, 2.25 hours.
Yeah. Sorry, this comes and goes. This is dislocated. I told you, didn't I? This is damaged. It's really quite bad. And the other one started now. So years of sport and abuse. But
well, now your good shoulder is overcompensating. So now it's starting to get worn out. Right?
There are no good shoulders. Like everything else, it's getting worn out. And that's okay. That's okay, because it'll soon mean I can't go to the gym. I'll have to spend more time playing the guitar, which is not a bad thing. But it's amazing how much you know about this subject. It really is. I listen to you. I think, how do you know?
Well, I mean, I can't take credit for that. I mean, that's just me watching an interview. An interview with Marshall Chess.
That's fine. I know, but it makes you pretty much an authority, and I think it's a hell of a resource. your brain.
I mean, if you
Don't
want to
know
hear
what
a great
to play.
example of how the blues influenced hip hop, all you got to do is listen to Common. There's a rapper named Common. He's out of Southside Chicago. He grew up listening to funk, soul, R&B, and he grew up listening to the blues. And the blues has always been a type of folk music, a type of the blues has always been the sort of the fad music, the in fashion music, the hot music amongst African Americans. And when it started falling out of favor, and soul and R&B and funk started making their way in, they always had that blues flavor. So when you got guys like Common, who's from the South Side of Chicago, who's a rap artist, he's drawing from not only funk and R&B, but he's going back and drawing from the blues too, because he grew up in freaking Chicago, man. You can't help it, So he's a great example of sort of a blues flavored hip hop guy or rap artist.
It's incredible. It is incredible. Right. Well, I'm gonna wrap. So next week I'll hopefully take it a little bit further than one string. I'll look at some chords next week. But if you are a beginner, start with the lesson I put right at the beginning of this video. But I will chop it and edit it and put that up as a lesson.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. Well, it's just because we'll talk and then jam a little bit, have a coffee, and we'll go on all night. I mean,
we've done that dozens of times.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but have you heard this? We'll listen to it. Oh, yeah. Oh, listen how that works, and listen how this works. It's interesting because you'll know all the history and the social aspect. And
sometimes I forget about an artist too, and then somebody will mentions a song or something, and then that'll jog my memory that, oh yeah, you got to listen to. You got to listen to recordings of the Rabbit Foot Minstrels from the 1920s, and people are like, who the hell are they? And that had Big Joe Williams, Baby Please Don't Go. Well, in the 1920s, he was a vaudeville performer that used to perform in these traveling medicine shows and tent shows with Ma Rainey in the 1920s.
Yeah, and the other character, blues player, sorry. You look at Big Bill Brunsey with his big acoustic guitar, and the chord patterns it was using, very, very modern, very, very modern.
Yeah, that's, like I said, it was the freshest, most fashionable music of the time.
Yeah, it really did have some modern moves. I mean, in today's
this is going to, there's no proper way for me to say it where it isn't going to come out sounding racist or bigoted, but you got to admit, man, like the African American culture in the United States, they're very fashionable. They're very much up on the latest trends, the latest scene, what the hottest new style is. They've always been like that in the U.S. The African American community has always been on the leading edge of pop culture.
Yeah,
so it's no wonder the blues just became the most popular music for probably like from the 1920s right up until the 50s and 60s, until soul and funk came along and kind of dethroned the blues for a while there.
I don't think how providing the world with such gems is in any way, shape, or form bigoted. I mean, we're here as fanboys, surely to goodness.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I have nothing but a deep-seated gratitude for the African American community for creating this music to begin with.
Well, it'd be a whole massive gaping cavern in my life. Anyway, right. Well, I'm going to Scarpa. I hope, and thank you so much for the 101. Is it 100? Just a second. 101 subscribers with that.
Yeah, 101. So yeah, thanks everyone.
I'm going to say it. If you can subscribe, if you also can share, put the word out, carry a pigeon, smoke signal, whatever you wish. Because the next target, of course, is the 1,000 in another few.
Who knows? Yeah.
How long have we been doing this?
Well, let's not get carried away here. Here's to the next 100. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. 200. Yeah, that'll do. 102. How long have we been doing this? How long have we been doing this now?
On this channel?
Yeah. A year? Have we had our anniversary?
Well, I think we're coming up on 2 years. Let me just
really?
Check.
Gosh. God.
Just double check here. Let's see. Started December 16th, 2017.
Get off. We've got a 2
So
year
basically,
anniversary.
2 years ago
We've done
today,
2
almost
years.
2 years ago, a week
Hey,
ago. Yeah,
yeah, we're 100 subscribers. People get
didn't
that.
take us long to get 100. I had 2 years.
Well, who cares? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We're enjoying it. Right, gents. I don't know how. I'll leave it open for a little. How do I turn us off? But leave the
There'll be
stream on.
on the top
Right
hand side above the chat. It'll say end stream or end broadcast or something.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Tiger C, AP530. Who else is in here? Tommy Wizzo, T1000. Who else have we had? Participants.
Yeah, AP530, Tiger C.
Who else has been in?
Tommy Wizzo.
Knobhead.
Popped in and out.
Knobhead 1. All right. Okay.
Yeah, so thanks everybody for all your support. It's been terrific.
Thank you.
You know, to those of you that'll listen in later on, because maybe you were partaking in the holiday festivities over this weekend. You know, thanks to all of you as well for all your support.
And please like.
Great.
If you can.
Oh, there's Knobhead 1. He says hello, boys. Hello,
Knobhead 1. Hi, Knobhead 1. Yeah, we've just begun. We're just sort of winding down, I'm afraid. So, and thank you to you, Whiskey. Thank you very much to you, old fella.
Thank you, my friend.
Yet again, a quick half-hour chat.
A project born out of shared mutual love and passion for this great musical art form, and it's evolved into a terrific lifelong friendship. So I couldn't be more tickled at this whole thing. This is terrific.
Great. Just great. In fact, anyway, I'll talk to you off air. Right, gentlemen, ladies, I shall speak to you anon.
All right. Take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. Bye, folks. End broadcast.